In the tapestry of life, where every thread holds a story, America in Black and White emerges as a haven for the voices echoing through the heart of our communities. In this podcast, we wade through the rivers of our collective experiences, celebrating the vibrant hues of change brought forth by the whispers of hope and the roars of action. It's more than just a conversation. It's a journey into the heart of our society, illuminated by the light of those daring to dream and do. Join us, and let your voice be the melody that guides us toward a dawn where every color finds its place in the masterpiece of our shared destiny. Together, let's paint a future brimming with the positives that dwell in our minds and the actions that shape our world.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to another episode of America in Black and White, where we are coloring conversations on the canvas of America. Tonight's show is about legacy, leadership, and liberation, the journey of Dr. Lashawnte McCray-Sarvis. Dr. Lashawnte McCray-Sarvis is a visionary, educator, consultant, and author with over 28 years of experience in shaping learning environments that foster equity, innovation, and lifelong success. She currently serves as an assistant principal of Hayward Career and Technology Center, where she has helped to cultivate a culture of safety, well-being, and productivity that empowers both students and adults to thrive in a globally competitive society. Dr. Lashawnte McCray-Sarvis was born and raised in Conway, South Carolina, where she graduated with honors from Conway High School. Her story is one of perseverance, resilience, and unwavering determination. As a single teenage mother, she embraced the challenges of early motherhood, dedicating herself to being a nurturing parent while pursuing her dream of becoming an educator. She credited those formative years in instilling in her deep sense of responsibility, compassion, and drive to be both an example and an advocate for her children and the communities she served. Motivated by her passion for learning and service, Dr. McCray-Sarvis attended Coastal Carolina University, where she majored in psychology and secondary education. After earning her degree, she began her teaching career as a social studies teacher, spending 9 years in the classroom shaping young minds and inspiring students to think critically, pursuing excellence, and believe in their potential. Her time in the classroom provided her with firsthand insight into the power of education to transform lives, as well as the systemic challenges that many students face, particularly those from underserved communities. Ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to introduce you all to Dr. Lashawnte McCray-Sarvis. Did I say that right, or did I mispronounce your name?
You said it correct, Lashawnte, not Lashawnte. But okay. Look, I've been called Lashawnte. It's been French, so you're fine.
I'm sorry about that, because you know
what. Look, you learn to live with it, and laugh with it, and just say, hey, we all have unusual names.
So, is there anything you'd like to add to your bio before we jump into the show?
Well, since we were on the name, just to say, I asked my mom, about my name and where she came up with it. And I actually have, I wrote about it in my book that I released last year. And so I asked my mom, where did my name come from? She said, well, you were the only Lashawnte in South Carolina. And that she said she put my name together. So basically, she was still under the influence of the medication from giving birth. And I don't know where the putting together came from, but here I am. And so now I have, there's so many people I hear with Lashawnte, and Mushanta, Dushanta. There's a lot. So, that's what she told me. She put it together. She was under the influence of the medication.
Okay. Well, So what we're gonna do now, let's start with the roots and rise of your entrepreneurial journey. Can you tell us what inspired you to launch LaJane's Consulting LLC?
So Lee James Consulting, I began looking at building my own legacy, something to leave behind for my children and my grandchildren. It began during the pandemic because we were still having school, but it was virtually. And even though you would think there would be no issues in the classroom virtually, there were. You had, students would sleep, they would have the camera on, and they're in bed under the covers. And so it started with the podcast. My podcast is Embarking. I'm sorry, that's the name of my book, Embarking on a Journey Through the Eyes of a Poet. The podcast title is The Road to an Effective Classroom Environment. And so I started doing that. And then it had me thinking, you know what? There is a need for being able to provide information to teachers after this pandemic of how to pull everything back together and make sure your classrooms can still be effective coming out of the pandemic. And then on top of that, there was an influx. We've had an influx of international teachers in recent years, and they come with so much knowledge, and many times they end up going back home to their countries because of the classroom management piece. So that in itself was another, reason as to why I wanted to begin Lee James Consulting, was to provide mentorship that was ongoing for international teachers and providing them support so that they could become acclimated with the zip codes that they were servicing. Because it's different when you are a Korean teacher, Filipino, coming from West Africa, Nigeria. You're coming from different countries. Education is held in high regards in those countries, and children are different when it comes to how they see education. But when you place the international teachers here in America, they think that it's the same, and it's not. Our children, they deal with poverty, they deal with abuse, they deal with a lot of things that come into the classroom. And so I wanted to be able to provide, support for those teachers as well as educators in general to help them in their classroom.
Now, this is the $1,000,000 question.
Oh boy!
How do you define success as a Black woman entrepreneur?
Ooh. Well, just off the top of my head, I would say the money, but show me the money. But oh goodness, but that is true. There is truth behind there. Why do it if you're not making you're changing lives, but you also want to be able to support yourself as well. Mm-hmm. But success for me is being able to reach the individuals that the business targets. If I'm able to reach them and I'm able to help and support them, and they are able to put the dollars and cents in my pocket, that is success.
Mm-hmm. Oh, wow. And so, but did you, especially with your consulting business, and especially being around the educational realm, did you find it difficult getting into that industry as a consultant, even though you had the years of experience as a teacher?
I will be totally honest. It's still difficult because it's, this is one of those things of, but I put so much passion because I'm still in my 9 to 5 and being an assistant principal. And so, my heart is always in education, and I'm still one of those that I stay, I may stay later or stay after or help in supporting in different areas. And so when I first started, I'm gonna be honest, the first year I just focused on getting the paperwork together and, getting the business developed so it was legal and so forth. And I was like, you know what? I'm just going to have it for tax purposes, just being transparent and just talking with other people, other women like me who had their own businesses, whether it was consulting or they were stylists. They were trying to find ways of getting themselves going as well. So it has been difficult, but it's gotten better because I've gotten with more women, Black and brown women, we are all together helping each other. Because if you try to do this by yourself, and I'm one of those, I can take care of things on my own, but in education, you've got to be able to delegate. And so I had to turn around and try to be able to do the same not so much delegating my business, but being able to say, hey, show me how you do, this AI thing. What is this all about? Because I was afraid of AI for up until last year. I didn't want to touch it, but AI has been, it's been wonderful. You just have to know how to use it, and you have to put those fears aside. So long way of saying that, yeah, it's still difficult. But the people that I've now linked myself up with, we are helping and supporting each other, because sometimes it is more difficult for us to get in the, be able to get the clientele, to be in front of the school boards, to be in front of the principals, the superintendents that are looking for your services.
Wow. So what challenges have shaped your approach to leadership?
What challenges? So first, I guess one of my first challenges was actually getting into leadership to begin with, because I never saw myself being an administrator and being in that leadership role. I thought I was going to teach middle school social studies, South Carolina history forever. And then don't laugh at me. But then my first job wasn't even middle school. My first teaching job and my whole 9 years of teaching has been at the high school level. And I fell in love with high school, fell in love with prom and sports. I was at every football game, wrestling. I traveled with them to wrestling. And so I wanted to be a teacher and remain a teacher, and thought that's what I would do and retire. I never looked at leadership. I said, that's not for me. I want to be here and be with the kids, support them. I was heading up 4 or 5 different clubs at the last school that I taught at. I was at Carolina Forest High School, and every time a Black or brown child came to me and said, hey, we want a gospel choir. Will you be the advisor? Okay, we'll do it. We want a step team. I know you're a Delta. Okay, we'll do that. And so I really didn't see myself going into leadership until my principal and other teachers, they were like, we see something in you. And so I went, got the degree, and I said, well, I'll just keep the degree and, just get the money, the pay increase. But after a while, I started feeling like I want to make an impact on more students. And so that's when I started trying to get an assistant principal position. And it seemed like when I was trying, I wasn't getting any bites at all, no bites. And this was in the district that I had been working in and lived in Horry County in South Carolina. And so it took about 2 years to really get into getting interviews and that type of thing. And then once I stopped thinking about it, guess what? I was doing summer school. I was the coordinator for the summer program for the high school. And so that I did the graduation and so forth. Once all the students, they completed their program, and I went to all the high schools to check on them during that time period. And at the end of that, I will never forget a gentleman by the name of Mr. Ed Curley. He came to me and he said he needed to meet with me. So went to meet him at the district office, and I had on a Carolina Forest shirt. I was going back in the classroom to teach the next day. He said, oh, we need to change that shirt. And I said, okay. In my mind, I'm thinking, oh, Lord, y'all about to move me to another school to teach, and this is the day before. That's what was going through my head, because I'm a very analytical thinker, and I'm just like, everything was just going. And so he said, we have an assistant principal position for you at Loras High as a special education administrator. If you want the job, you've shown, what you can do, and we want to give you the opportunity. I was ecstatic. and I took it, and the rest is history.
Mm.
It was a challenge just getting, because sometimes as educators we will get, just as anyone else, we will get we'll be upset if we think things are not coming to us quick enough, and it's almost like, well, I want it now, but I can't get it now because nobody's wanting to hire me. What's wrong? What is it that I'm doing wrong? And sometimes it's just your interview technique. So but that was a challenge for me, was just getting my foot into the door to begin with.
But now I'll tell you this, Dr. McCray-Sarvis, as you know, especially as I go through and I was reading your bio, and just thinking about these years of education and the relativity that you have to the kids that you've had the opportunity to impact their lives, I would think you would have been in leadership a long time ago. I mean, do you think that just in just time, that it just took time for those systems to mature to get you to that point? Or do you think it was just your time?
I truly believe it was the timing. It was my time, because I know people who are just beginning. I'm now seeing the students that I've taught that are in teaching, and people who I've mentored, that they're now assistant principals and even principals. And so 9 years in the classroom is not a short period of time, but it's not a long period of time either. And some people, they just know off the bat, after being in the classroom for a couple of years, that, okay, next step is I'm going into leadership. But for me, it wasn't that. So I think it was a little bit of, the process, and me just knowing the right things to say in an interview and how to conduct myself in an interview. And it wasn't that they were horrible, but sometimes in the process, people already know who they want, and it's just going through the motions of, we've got to interview these candidates, but we know we're going to have this person to be the one, and that's a part of the system, and that's everywhere you go. Doesn't matter if it's a good old boy system or there's also a black and brown good old boy system as well. So yes. It was a little bit of me knowing that I was ready and what I needed to do and say, but it was also so it was a little bit of both, the process as well as me and maturity. Yeah, but this is year 29 for me, so it's been a journey.
How do you balance business strategy with community impact?
Business strategy with community impact. Well, a part of my business plan is that I want to give back to organizations that I have taken to heart. Giving back to the Kidney Foundation. My daughter, she is a kidney transplant. She received her kidney in February. And so we're going into month 7 of her having a new lease on life. And so a part of my business plan is being able to give back and being able to, whether it's financially or providing support, fundraising, walks, that type of thing. Also, my sister, she had MS, multiple sclerosis, giving back to that foundation. And she died in 2015. And there are now, thank you, there are now medications out there that I see. I got teary-eyed one day when there was a medication that was advertised for progressive MS, because hers was progressive. And so I got teary-eyed, and I started just boohoo crying, because I'm like, if she had been here, that would have been something she would have been able to have. And so those are foundations that I made sure that a part of what I do in my consulting, I want to be able to help advocate for those individuals. And also the Lupus Foundation, I was, and I say was because I don't claim illnesses, and I tell people, if you speak it, that's what it is. But I was diagnosed when I was 19 with lupus, systemic lupus, diabetes, which later on found out that was gestational, so I don't have that now. And then rheumatoid arthritis. So at 19, to me, I felt like I was getting a death sentence. So that's another foundation that I tie myself to, because there are I know many people that every day I find out someone new that deals with symptoms from it. And thankfully, I don't have to take medication, and I don't deal with it as I did when I was 19. So so giving back in the community, those major organizations, and just spreading the word about, what you can do in order to be tested if you're having different symptoms and flare-ups and so forth, and finding out if this is a part of your family history, because a lot of times we as Black and Brown, we don't always take care of ourselves and going to the doctor on a regular basis. And one thing about my family, we go. My mom, my grandmother, they went, and I know when to go and when not to go. And so just going to those yearly annual checkups, and making sure that if you have something running in your family, that you stay on top of it. So so those three foundations are ways things that I have in my business plan, and organizations that I want to work with. And then just being a part of, I'm a member of the Spartanburg alumni chapter of Delta Sigma Theta Incorporated, and in Spartanburg, South Carolina. And so there are a lot of initiatives and things that are done in the Spartanburg community. And you're probably saying, well, I thought you lived in Columbia. And I do. Mm-hmm. And sometimes you will gather with those that you feel closest to. And so I have several friends in that chapter. And so I am looking at, trying to do more in the Columbia area, because I finally made this home and buying my home in 2021. And so this is my 9th year here and my 4th year in my home. So that tells you just a little bit. I tried to figure out, I never wanted to live in Columbia, just FYI, never. Ever. I used to travel to Columbia for all types of conferences when I was an administrator in Horry County, and I was like, I hate I-20, I hate 77. I did not want to do it. 26. I did not want to live in Columbia, and then God has a funny way. Has a funny way of just putting you in places where you need to be. But it has definitely been a great experience being here.
Wow. So what's one lesson you've learned from building your own brand?
I have learned to stand behind what you can do. Stand behind your words, stand behind your talent, stand behind your skills, because no one can take that from you. And the only person who's going to give you your shout out the most is going to be yourself. And you have to be confident in knowing what you are able to do as a business owner, knowing what you can do, period. As a person, you've got to be your biggest advocate, and you've got to stand on, as the young people say, I stand on business. I know who I am, and I know whose I am.
Okay. That's
okay.
You got to. How do you design services that meet both educational and corporate needs?
So I like to sit down and talk, of course, having an initial conversation with the group or individuals that I'm working with to see, to start looking strategically at what the needs are. So looking at doing a needs assessment for that business or for that organization, figuring out what is it that you need. And sometimes they need that outside looking in order to help them, because if they came to you with a need, that means they may not know what their needs are, but you want to start with them to begin with, and to see exactly what they feel needs to be addressed. So I like to do that needs assessment, and then mapping out a strategic plan for the organization. If they have a strategic plan, reviewing it to see if there are some gaps, if there are some things that haven't been done lately. Because many times when you see places struggling, they may not be going back to that strategic plan and focusing on those goals for their company or for their business.
Mm-hmm. So this is a two-part question here.
Okay.
And with this question, if you could please, for those young individuals that want to get into, let's say, the education arena, maybe do some consultancy like you, one, can you give them some advice as to some of the things that they may want to do? And then for those businesses that may be looking for your services, can you tell them what is it that you're going to give them that's going to make them much, much better, and why you're that candidate?
Okay. All right. So the first part of the question was what advice would I give others who are wanting to get into education? Mm-hmm. My advice would be make sure, and that was actually one of my podcast episodes a few months ago, or it might have been last year, how to know if this is for you. Do your research. Education in 2025 is different from education in 1997 when I started teaching. The children are different. Social media has just changed education for the good in some areas, but there are also some things that has caused education to have a lot of problem areas that we have to curtail. So my advice would be to make sure that you do your research. Make sure you talk to other educators, not just the ones who have the positive things to say, but also the ones that may say, you don't want to get into this. You need to run. You want to hear from them too, but have a balance. Make sure you listen to both sides. And a lot depends on what area you're going in, what state you're going in, whether or not it's a state that has a union versus not a union. So my advice to young people is to do your research. Is education, is it a difficult profession? It can be if you make it. Education is all about the people. I tell people every day, the children, we can deal with children. The children are there to come and learn, and they are still developing. Their brains are still developing. Sometimes it's these adults that, I want to, a little bit, it's the, you can tell I just came home from work, right? Sometimes it's these overgrown adults that cause us more headaches. But the children, we can work with the kids. We can work with whatever it is that they have going on. But we want to keep the main thing. So, those of you that are wanting to go into education, please do your research. And this is not to tell you don't do it, because if I had to choose again whether or not I'll go into education, I would still do it. Just the messages I get from students alone that are now adults. I've seen children, my children get married, have babies, they're going into professions, and they're executives, they're teachers, they're lawyers, and some of them will still come on Facebook and shout me out and say, you know what, thank you for what you did. Thank you for keeping me out of trouble. I remember what we did in class. That always warms my heart. And sometimes that, I'll get a little teary-eyed over all of that, because it lets me know that I did leave a mark in their lives, and they've left a mark in my life as well. So do your research. That would be my advice. Do your research. It is a rewarding career, but you want to know that you're going to be in it to win it, and that you don't want to bail out on these kids. You don't want to bail out. They need people who want to be in education. That's what they need. They don't need people who are fly by night. 1 minute they're here, next minute they're gone. Mm-hmm. The second part of that, what would I tell individuals who are wanting my services? What would they get? Mm-hmm. You will get what you see. All this loveliness, all this, you will get this. You will get this attitude, the energy. I love what I do. Analytical mind. I am that individual that I'm going to continue to help and support even after I've left your company, left your business. I'll go home and I'm still thinking about what is something else that I can help you with. How can I turn this problem around, and so that it's no longer a problem for them. You're getting someone who is dynamic, someone who's compassionate, someone who knows how to do the work that she does. My years of experience go from not just the classroom, but I also had the opportunity to be a principal. I was a principal at a middle school for 3 years. And then I also worked in Augusta, Georgia. I worked at the board and worked with first year principals and assistant principals. And that particular year, there were 9 new principals in the district. I'm sorry, not 9, there were 12 new principals. Of the 12, 3 of them were, and that's where I get the 9. 3 of them have been principals in other districts, but I provided support for all 12. I worked in professional learning and loved it. And when I worked in that, I saw that, I might want to do some things with elementary, because elementary was never, I didn't want the young kids. They like to grab around your leg and snotty noses at wintertime, and you want to put boogies on you. And that was just not me. that I chose secondary. I said, give me the big ones. But now, after working at the board, I think I can do it now. I believe that I would like that opportunity. But if I don't get the chance, I will always remember my experiences in Augusta and when I was able to go and do model lessons for teachers. And so, yeah, you're getting someone who's worked from, being a classroom teacher. I worked summer school program. I've worked as a assistant principal, and a facilitator of leader quality. And so you're getting someone with expertise. And one thing that I tell everyone is that if you were to talk to any of my supervisors, my former supervisors, they would tell you, even my current, that I am someone that I'm dedicated, hardworking, and that I don't get into the mess. I'm there to do business. I don't like chaos. I don't like confusion. And so I know how to work this.
Well, we got 2 comments here that's in the chat. The first one is from Jasmine Franks Butler. She says, "That's my AP. So proud of her."
Thank you, Jazz.
And this one is from Lashawnte Sarvis. Thanks, Mom.
That's my daughter. She is the kidney transplant patient. Yes.
Oh, that reminds me. I think when you and I was chatting, one of my former guests, she too was a kidney transplant recipient. And she's now entrepreneur. She's moving in a lot of different spaces. I think it'd probably be good if I actually get the opportunity to connect you all to, where I think you all could probably do some work together.
That would be awesome, because my daughter, she's actually she's taking some courses now in business administration, and so she wants to have her own nonprofit in helping others to gain resources, because after you get a kidney, you think that everything is great and you got, everything's laid out for you. And sometimes it's a battle just to get resources for, it's just a fight for your money, for Social Security. And it's a lot that they go through. If you don't already have money sitting in a bank account, it's a lot. It's a lot. So she is wanting to be an advocate. And so I applaud her for that. And I'm going to be there to support her. So thank you. That would be a great connection.
Yes. So what advice would you give to aspiring entrepreneurs? Well, we already talked about that for the underserved communities. But how do you stay grounded while scaling your vision?
How do I stay grounded? Prayer. I'm a true. I am a believer. And trust and believe. There are some days in which I question myself, because I said sometimes I have a Paul spirit that rises up, or I'm like Jesus at the temple when he was just pushing over the tables. But I try to stay grounded through my poetry. I like to write poetry. That was my first book, was all types of poetry that I wrote from 13 on up to my early or middle 20s. And so I love writing, listening to music. I try to stay grounded by just keeping my goals in perspective and making sure that every day I self-reflect. And so that's something that I also talk about to my teachers and to others when I'm on my podcast. Self-reflection is important. Every day I look back on what my day has been and exactly, what were some areas that I could have improved in, and what are some things that, I was great at, and just making sure that I stay focused on improving myself. Because as I tell people, I don't walk around like I know it all, but I know what I know. I'm confident in what I know, but there are still things that every day I want to improve in. And one thing is also, as I was just saying before I got onto the podcast, I did a live on Facebook encouraging people to come on to the podcast. So even up in the ninth hour, I was still out there promoting you. And I was just saying that, my current principal, he's helping me still with, just resilience and keeping the main thing, and not to sweat the small stuff. Because sometimes those small things will get to me, because everybody is not as passionate as I am about certain things, or everyone is not wanting to follow the leadership in the building and do what is asked. As I tell people, if I'm not asking you to jump off a building, if I'm not asking you to hurt someone else, then just do it. Just do what is being asked. If I'm giving you a reason as to why you should do it, some people just say, just do it because I say so. Like it's a parent and child relationship. But I believe as a leader, we need to make sure that our people know why we are telling them to do the things that they're doing. It's very important to have a reason behind it.
Let's transition over to the written word. Yeah, that is your authorship and storytelling. Can you tell us what inspired your book, My Name is Lashawnte, From the Womb to the Woman?
So that is the phonetic way of saying my name, Lashawnte.
Okay.
Yeah.
I still missed it.
It's okay.
God, I'm so sorry.
It's okay. It's fine. It's fine. Look, it's a teaching moment, because I tell people when I was younger, I would get I would get grouchy when people said my name wrong. When I was in middle school and the subs would come in, until that one substitute I think it was for math class. I might have been in 7th or 8th grade. And the sub, he pronounced my name Lashawnte. And I thought to myself, oh, that sounds French. I think I like that. And ever since then, I don't sweat. I don't sweat it anymore. So, but I did that. I named the book. I did the phonetic spelling to help people pronounce it, but I know people are still going to mispronounce it. It's fine. It's a teaching moment. I came up with the idea to write that book because of my life story and just I wanted to give people another form of inspiration and motivation, because as you said in my bio, I was a single parent. I had my son the my senior year, the first day of school, my senior year. I should have been in class, and I'm at the hospital giving birth to him. And and then my daughter, I had her a year later, and I was supposed to start at Coastal that fall, but I ended up starting that spring in January, because there was nothing that was going to keep me from getting what I needed to get. My children were my motivation, and I needed to show them that in life you can do anything. So the book has came about because I wanted to share my story and just some of the things that I went through, and that I'm still here, and that I'm still filled full of life, and I'm still going and still doing. And so that book is just a sneak peek, because my some of my coworkers that purchased the book,
Mhm.
They they said, well, so I'll give one part away in it. So there's a part where I talk about my dad. My mom went to the grocery store, and this was right before he left out of our life, as far as he moved out when I was 7. So I think I might have been 5 or 6, and my mom went to the grocery store, and my sister, she was we're 3 years apart. She was in the crib, and I had on this flannel nightgown. Now it's summertime, but it was my favorite nightgown. Mm-hmm. And so he had some eggs on the stove that were boiling. Well, my mom came in the house because the smoke detector was going off. I was crying. I was trying to pull my sister out of the crib. I pulled one of the bars off the crib because I thought the house was going to burn down, and I'm trying to get the baby. I was like, I got to get the baby. I got to get the baby, trying to get her out of the crib so we could get out of the house. My dad is sound asleep on the couch. Did not hear anything until my mom walked in the door, and she started yelling his name and some other extra things behind his name. And so that was one of my memories, because I remember that. It wasn't what she told me. I remember what happened. And so when I put that in there, I kind of stopped and gave like a little moral to this event. And some of my coworkers were like, did the house burn down? I said, well, I'm still here, but no. I said, I'm gonna put everything in the next book. The house did not burn down. Fortunately, my mom got there. The eggs in the pot were black. The pot itself was black. It was a mess. I'm hot in this flannel nightgown, and I'm just like, oh my goodness. But yeah, so it's been interesting just hearing some of the feedback from folks. They're like, oh, you got the book number 3, we're waiting, because I'm going to go in more detail about some of the events that I talked about, and then some more personal, even some more personal things that I know will help others in their life and just helping them grow. Because there was a point in time I didn't want to talk about me. There was a time I was ashamed about some of the things that I had gone through and things that I've done, but none of us are perfect. Right. We all fall short. We all, every day. That's why self-reflection is so important to me now, because when I look back, I'm like, I know I made a mistake, but it's okay. We learn from our mistakes. But this book was a way of me opening up and sharing my life to help other people. And it was a way to help me also personally to say, hey, yeah, these things happen to you, but it's okay.
Mm-hmm. So how does storytelling help you reclaim identity and power?
Storytelling helps me to reclaim my identity because it allows me to see myself in the way that I am. By telling a story, whether I write it or I say it, it helps me to know that this is who I am. Sometimes when we may think about who we are, and we may say in our minds, oh, I'm great, I'm excellent. We have all those affirmations that we say, I'm powerful. But until you actually say it out loud, put pen to paper, and writing poems is a way for me to help show who I am as a writer. And then sometimes the poems themselves help to show who I am, who I am and what I've gone through that have helped to develop me to become who I am. I think the storytelling itself helps me to keep in the forefront who I am, because a lot of times I'll do a lot of thinking. I think a lot. I'm a very thoughtful person, analytical, as I said. But when I'm storytelling, I help to give myself even more life, mm-hmm. and to make myself be who I say I am and stand behind it. Storytelling helps me to stand behind who I am and who I say I am.
I got to tell you, I know just actually getting a chance to see you physically here in person, it's even better. But I got to tell you, you have a beautiful, beautiful spirit. It's very, very bright.
Thank you.
And that is the one thing I think that most people need to have, because when you have a bright spirit, that means you're illuminating. Everywhere you go, you're illuminating.
I try.
Um, what themes do you explore in your poetry anthology, Embarking on a Journey?
So it is a chapter book, and the themes all deal with some different aspects of what I liked most in life during that time period. So as I said, the poems are a collection from age 13 into my 20s, and I published that one in about, I think it was 2005, 2006. And so I have a chapter about nature. I loved writing about nature because growing up in the projects was you didn't see a lot of, we saw grass, we saw trees. You had, once they planted the nice little flower bushes and they bloomed in the spring, we saw that. But to see rolling hills and to see, a field of daisies and things like that, you would have to go out further in the country and so forth. But 17 years of my life, I was raised in the projects. Now, my New York cousins, when they would come down for the summer, they said, these are not the projects. We've seen projects in New York. This is not the projects. It was the projects for South Carolina, okay? So nature to me, I loved looking at the clouds. I loved, I would sit on the school bus and just looking out the window at the neighborhoods and how nice and neat the grass was cut. So my poems are about nature. I have poems about my Christian journey. I have poems about the weather and talking about storms. I love rain. I love thunderstorms. And it was different genres of poems. I have what's called a desiderata, which is in Spanish is basically about it's a motivational speech, and it was something that I did in high school. And so that's one of the pieces that I have in the book as well. But it's 7 chapters of different elements of my life that I enjoy speaking about. Also, one of the poems that really resonated with me as a kid was about being a dark complected woman. And it took me until I actually was online and once I came through my chapter Sigma Xi, which was an undergrad chapter for Delta Sigma Theta Incorporated at Coastal Carolina, I really didn't embrace my color, because during that time, growing up in the 90s, the 80s and 90s, when you were dark skinned, you were not it. You were not it. Light skin was it, And so for a long time, I did not like being dark skinned. I didn't like being in my own skin. And I wrote a poem, poems about that, Child of the Night, because I felt like sometimes being this color, I was unseen, and people didn't take notice. And not talking about guys, because y'all, guys are different. Y'all, do your own thing. But not talking about guys, but just being seen in general, just being seen in general. So so it's a collection of things that, things I've gone through, things I've liked, and things I've actually, overcome.
You mentioned something about the colorism, which I think is really bad in our community still. And that's like from generations ago. But can you tell us, and just thinking about that color and colorism and how you felt unseen as being dark complected, what were some of the adverse effects that had on you?
Oh my goodness. As a child, I would come home, I got teased from let's see, 2nd grade up until 8th grade. And when I was in 2nd grade, it was a 5th grader that, she would call me, Blackie, Darky. And, I actually bonded with children that didn't look like me. And at recess, instead of going outside for recess, I bonded with 2 young ladies who did not look like me. And we were the best of friends. And I still stay connected with one of them through, Facebook, and we, check on each other. The other young lady, she sadly passed away a little while ago. But being teased about your color or being teased about the clothes that you wore. I came home and I would cry. Now, my mom is someone who I look up to personally. She's one of those individuals that I look back on now and I said, she did that. She raised 3 children and she did the best that she could. She did everything she had to do to provide for us. And, so when I would go home crying about being teased, she would say, she would tell me stop crying, because she was one of those, she fought boys and girls when she was in school. My mama was a fighter. She said, if someone bothers you, if they put their hands on you, you fight them. That's not me. Now, I might fight now. I'm just kidding. But when I was in school, I was not a fighter because I knew I wanted to stay in school. I love school. And so she would say, don't worry about what people say. She would say it all the time, but it didn't sink in as a kid not to worry about them calling me Blackie and Darky. It hurt. So it hurt me emotionally. There were times in which I wanted to, there were commercials about, cream that could bleach your skin. Ooh. I was looking for ways to do, to be lighter. And this was when I started making my own money. When I was working in high school, I worked in this program through school called JTPA. And so I had an opportunity to work over the summer, and I worked, when everyone else was learning their math skills and so forth. I was the teacher's assistant. That was my job. And then I had the opportunity to work at the district office in filing and at the courthouse. So when I started getting my own money, I remember buying cream that was bleaching cream because I wanted to be lighter, because it seemed like that was what was acceptable. So, it's important that, we embrace and we help our young people who struggle with identity, and they struggle with, liking themselves and liking the skin that they're in. Because for a long time, and I mean, even as an adult woman, it took me a long time to embrace who I am because of what other people said. I cared about what others thought about me. I tell people now, nobody can tell me I don't look good now. No one cannot tell me, and I look good on the inside first, and it comes out on the outside. I tell people I don't care what people think anymore, because I'm confident in who I am, and I love who I am. And for a while I could not say that. And so I feel that we just have to embrace our young people and helping them to understand. And that's another piece of, what I try to do is encouraging, young people that I run across, at my school or anywhere. Love who you are. That self-talk and affirmations. And the more you say it, you will believe it, because it is true.
Right. Wow. Look, before we move on here, let me just go here back to the chat. Lashawnte sent you a couple of messages.
She did.
First one is healthcare management.
She was telling me that is what she is majoring in, not business administration. My apologies. It's healthcare management.
And she says here, she can't wait till the next book. Tell us about it, please.
Okay.
And well, you don't have to do that now, because I know you want to wait to have that book launch.
Correct.
And the last thing here she says is, let me just show it to you on the screen. Says she's told you 1,000,000 times, you're very beautiful. Color doesn't matter.
Okay, girl, I know that. Remember, your mama tells you that all the time. I am beautiful. Okay, I got it. And thank you for affirming that.
And so how do you use writing as a tool for healing and transformation?
Oh, writing is so therapeutic for me, and I find that I'm doing more writing for my business now. But every now and then I'll have an idea for a poem, and I can be in the shower, and something will come to me, or I'm riding along, and I have an idea for something, and it's very therapeutic. And I was inspired to write from since middle school. Like I said, it's about 7th grade, I learned about Phyllis Wheatley.
Mhm.
And she was a slave brought over from West Africa, and she was the first noted African American poet. And ever since I learned about her in social studies class, I fell in love with the fact that she fought to have her publications out there, and that she overcame adversities to do what she did. And I actually pulled one of her short little snippets, short poems that she wrote on being brought from Africa to America, because I just loved how she rhymed. I loved her scheme of rhyming. And she wrote, "'Twas mercy brought me from my pagan land, taught my benighted soul to understand that there's a God, that there's a Savior too. Once I redemption neither sought nor knew. Some view our sable race with scornful eye. Their color is a diabolic dye. Remember, Christians, Negroes, black as Cain, may be refined and join the angelic train." I loved her style. And at the time as a kid, I thought that rhyming was the only way to do poetry, until I started writing in 8th grade, and we had a poetry assignment, and we did a different genres. We did haikus and poems with imagery. And so for me, when I'm writing, it helps me to release what's in me at the time. And sometimes the poems are, about things I'm going through. I wrote a poem when I was going through a divorce. Going through a divorce. It's a powerful poem now, but it's ugly. It's ugly. And I had it in my office at work for years. When I was working in a different district, it was because I just felt like, oh my goodness, what did I do? I compared how I was feeling to cancer. That's just how ugly it is. So yeah, it's some powerful imagery in that poem. I've also, written poems when I was happy and in love. Some seductive poems, but don't tell people about it. I haven't published any of those. So I'm telling all my business right now. Lashawnte, if you on right now, don't listen to any of that, okay? But so some of the poems are a little seductive, but nobody sees those but me.
You know something, that I've always, through all the readings that I've ever done, I've never read a poem in that fashion. Now that's got to be fascinating, different, but also creative in its own sense. That's got its own lane.
It is, yeah, it is. I'll share one with you after this.
So let's transition over to your speaking power with your speaking that is with voice, vision, and influence. Can you tell us what's your favorite topic to speak on?
My favorite topic is relationships, building relationships with your students. That is the basis of what I speak on when I go to conferences. A lot of the educational conferences that I speak at, I speak about how to build rapport with your students, and talking about building relationships, building rapport. And when you make the information relevant, that you will be able to hold and engage the attention of your students. But if you don't try to build relationships, if you just come in and you just say, you know what, do again that parent-child relationship, do what I tell you to do, you're not going to get them. You're not going to have them engaged. They're going to do whatever they want. They're going to be a behavior problem in your class. So that is definitely my favorite topic, is talking about building relationships with your students, because that is powerful. And I think there are times in which educators miss that mark because they're so bogged down in some of the politics that happens outside of the classroom, or they have other things going on in their life, and they're like, you know what, I'm not going to take the time. They just need to do what I say do. And that's the wrong attitude to have when you're working with children. There's nothing wrong with letting them get to know you a little bit. And I remember when I started teaching, I remember walking into the class. I had a portable as a classroom my first year. And when I had a chance to teach in my alma mater my first year, go Conway Tigers. And so when I walked in, the kids were whispering. They were like, where's the teacher? Where's the teacher? And I'm walking in there because I was 23 and I was teaching juniors and seniors. So they're 17, 18. And, you know, back then I passed as a student. Now I think I can still pass now, but it would be a different type of student because, you know, back then I looked the part of a student. But I was able to be firm in who I am and say, you know, I'm your teacher, but I started building those relationships and I didn't have the issues that other people had in their classrooms. Even as a first year teacher, I did not have those issues because there was a respect. And plus those students knew they needed U.S. history and they needed government and econ in order to, you know, to get out of high school.
Wow. So how do you prepare for emotionally charged speaking engagements?
So I begin preparing as soon as I know that my presentation has been accepted. And depending on the conference, usually, you know, I'm looking at preparation of a month to 3 months. And so I begin to, you know, do a basic outline of what I want to, you know, what I want to say. And then I go back and put in experiences from when I've been in the classroom, experiences in my leadership role and how in connecting with different individuals. So I begin with a basic outline. I come up with a topic and what I want to do, and then I start by going through and creating an outline and then adding the experiences in until I get to the point where I'm ready to do my presentation, whether it's a PowerPoint or a presentation. And then I start adding to finding motivational or funny videos because as you can tell, I'm a jokester. And so I like to laugh. I like to laugh. I like to, you know, I like to feel good doing the work that I'm doing and going into work and it not feeling so heavy. It's a plus because my days will go by a whole lot quicker. And sometimes your teachers and your staff, they need to know that you have a personality and they need to see a little bit of that. And so I try to put me into the presentation and, you know, have some fun things going on, doing, you know, just making sure I can connect with the audience. So my preparation begins with that outline, begins with the topic or begins with the title. And then I start, you know, looking at the outline and putting in experiences and pieces of me into that presentation.
Oh, wow. So, you know, let me tell you this, because actually it's one of the things that now I want to actually start doing a whole lot more of. And so can you like tell us, like in just doing your speech in general, whenever you're doing, you know, you're asked to speak at particular places, do they tell you what that audience is going to be so you know exactly how to cater your speech? Or when you're actually going to speak, they just say, hey, we want you to come speak at this place, and you just put it all together?
So so I know what my audience is going to be. The conferences that I have attended and applied to go to there, I know the audience, whether it's a K through 12 teachers, leaders, instructional coaches, superintendents. Usually there is that is already put out there so that we know who we're preparing for. There's been a time in which I have done a impromptu presentation, a 5-minute presentation. I went to a conference as an attendee, but a part of that was because I was a principal at the time, was presenting to an audience, which that also helped me to grab that speaking bug. And so all of us in there, we had to give a 5-minute presentation on a topic that was something was near and dear to our hearts. I almost panicked. I was like, oh my God, because I'm a writer. I'm a planner, and I'm like, I got to write something out. They were like, they gave us 5 minutes. And so I got up there. It freaked me out. It really did. But, you know, I did it. My heart beating fast, because it's one thing when you're speaking with children, and speaking in front of them. But this was my first time speaking in a large setting of people I don't know. They came from all parts of the country, and I'm like, oh boy. So that's where I got a little bit more of my speaking bug. But you pretty much know who you are speaking to, the level, what levels they're on. Because I've done a lot of education speaking. I'm supposed to be speaking at a church sometime next year for a conference, and so it's a women's conference, and I'll pretty much know the denomination and all of that as I get closer to that date and so forth. But yeah, you pretty much know your audience. You kind of have to know your audience, because it's not that it's difficult to not speak, but you want to cater what you're saying to who you're speaking to. If I'm going in to talk to superintendents about needing more mentors for international teachers, and if I don't know that I'm talking to superintendents, let's say that is actually assistant principals in the room, and assistant principals, we're not the ones that are making the decisions of who we pull in for the district. That's at the district level, that's superintendent. So I can do this big pitch for assistant principals, and they might pass the information on to their principal, who will pass it on to the superintendent. But 9 times out of 10, that doesn't always happen. So it's important to know who your audience is.
So what's the most memorable reaction you've received from an audience?
Applause. I mean, applause. And I mean, not just, oh, that's a good session, but, just hearing everybody applause and they're coming up. And this was, whenever I present for the Southern Regional Education Board, SREB, that is the one that I go to the most to present. And I remember, I think it was last summer's presentation. It was probably my most engaging presentation. And a number of people, they wanted to get in on the selfie, because I turned around to the audience. I said, okay, y'all, we're going to do a selfie. So I turned around and everybody was, waving. And so they were so excited about it. Even at the end, people weren't rushing out. And so that let me know that they enjoyed it. And I always do a survey when I give a presentation, whether the conference itself has their own surveys. I will always give my own survey at the end, because I want that feedback, because I want to be better at my craft, and I want to know if I was able to keep everyone's attention and engage them. So, and having the support from my principal, he was in there. He took so many pictures and videos that I had enough that I could use for later on in helping people to see just, how well I am speaking. And that sun is coming through brightly. I apologize for that.
No, that's okay. That's okay.
Oh my goodness! I can close the blind if you want me to. I did not.
Oh no, you're fine.
Well, okay. So all I can see is glasses. That's where that dark woman. All I see are specks on my glasses and my teeth. That's it.
Let's okay, now how do you tailor your message for different age groups and settings?
So for different age group settings, so of course I try to stay up on what the young people are doing. I used to keep up a lot with the music that young people listened to when I was in the classroom. And my first, the first probably 10 or 15 years of being in administration, I can't say that I'm all up to speed now, because I'm just like, okay, that sounds horrible. I can't listen to that. Give me something else. Now, boots on the ground, I'm good with, but some of this other stuff coming out, it's a little different for me. But I try to gear the presentations towards culturally what the young people, if it's for a young group, cater it to what their likes and needs are. Just as if I'm dealing with an adult group, catering to their likes and needs. So I do my research, just like I said earlier. For those who want to go into education, you have to do your research. And so doing your research is important when you're presenting and you're looking at whatever your target audience is. You want to present based on some of their likes, because it does help them to remember what you were talking about.
Dr. McCray, let me just tell you this real quick. This here in the chat, it is actually being posted that they want you to close the blinds because they can't see you.
I told you.
Yes, you
Specs
did.
on the glasses and my teeth. See?
Yes.
Would you like me to close the blinds?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. All right. You're gonna pop. I'm glad I have on clothes. There we go. I did not think that would happen because usually when I'm up here recording my podcast, it's usually on a Saturday night, Sunday night, and so no sun.
So we're gonna let's move over to education as liberation, your equity and innovation here.
Okay.
And can you tell us how has your role as a principal shaped your leadership style?
Being a principal showed me a lot. I tell people that I have more fun as an assistant principal because it's less political. I don't have to, shake the hands, kiss the babies, and as a principal, it helps me to see that even though I am making, I made a difference on a whole scale level, and being able to have my vision that's being carried out along with the vision of that superintendent, it helped me to be more aggressive when it comes down to getting what I want and what I know is best for a school. I had the opportunity as a principal to present to the board the reason for needing uniforms my first year as principal. And the teachers, they wanted it, the parents wanted it. The only ones that really didn't want it for the most part were the students. But there were some that gave me notes after we started with the uniforms that said, thank you, because my parents don't have a lot of money, and now I feel like I fit in now. So being a principal allowed me to see that I can be aggressive and standing behind what I believe is needed for a school, and just making sure that I work harder for my students and for my families and for the community.
What does equity in education look like to you?
So that's a very, very good question, because we talk about equity. And I know that in the early years of me being an educator, we all see the poster of the kid standing, trying to look over a fence, and you've got a kid that can see over the fence. They can see the baseball game. You've got another kid who can only see a little bit, if any or very much of the game. And then you have a kid who can't see the game at all until you start, leveling up and giving them, giving that shorter kid books to stand on to see over. Equity sometimes means we are giving each individual what he or she needs, and that's going to look different from person to person, child to child. It's going to look different. I may need more support when it comes down to being able to read effectively. The next person may need more support writing and being more effective, and needing those interventions put in place. But equity across the board, when it comes to education, it means that everyone needs to get to the same goal, but we may not all get there at the same time. We each may have different things we need to have invested in us to get us to that goal. But everyone may not arrive at the same time, but we all should have those avenues to get there. That's the best way that I can describe equity. Is we all will get to our goal, but everyone has different needs, and those needs should be supported for us to be able to get to that goal.
How do you build trust and rapport with students from diverse backgrounds?
My humor, my sense of humor, and being able to just, it goes a long way. Because even on the bus lot today, no, yes, 2 days ago, so today's Monday, I was leaving work, and so I saw a kid sitting on the curb, a Hispanic student, and I pulled around because this is after 5 o'clock, and I said, "What are you doing?" Because I remember he's a second-year barbering student, and I said, "Why are you sitting out here?" And he said, he was cutting hair in upstairs, and I said, "Well, where's the teacher? Because the teacher should be sitting here too with you." And so just being able to talk to him, I said, "You do know who I am, right?" Because a lot of times the kids don't know. They may forget who we are because our offices are on the other end. And it's early in the school year. And I said, "Do you know who I am?" He was like, yes, he knew who I was. I said, "Okay, I'm gonna look on camera tomorrow. Don't get in the car with any strangers. Don't talk to any strangers. Let me find out you moved from this spot. I'm coming to get you upstairs." And so he just started chuckling and laughing and so forth. And then even when I was in the classroom with my and I use this in a very loving term, because they call themselves this, my redneck girls. They would come in, and they were some of my best students when I was teaching at Carolina Forest, and they would come in, love up on me, and they authentically loved me because of who I am and how I treated them. I didn't treat them any type of way, didn't treat them differently than I treated, my Black and brown students. So students tend to, once they know that I'm there for them, they will gravitate to me. They will they'll come to me if they have questions and concerns, and even share. I had students that shared with me that, whenever my young ladies, they became pregnant, and they told me before they told their parents. And so, and I was able to, talk to them and encourage them to, make sure that you talk to your parents, and don't do like I did. That's a whole nother story for another segment. Don't do what I did.
You've got another comment here. This is from Bray Bellamy Sawyers, and says you're the best AP they ever had.
Yes, we stay in contact. Thank you, LaBracia. LaBracia is like my other daughter. That I'm not gonna tell you her story, but wee baby, but God. That's all I'm gonna say. But God, I love her to death. I love her to death.
Look, I guess the South Carolina Sun is just doing a different thing now.
I just don't look. It looks like I'm wearing a hat with it. But look, maybe I need to do this or something. I apologize. Man, listen, let me try the blind one more time. If anything, your listeners, they've gotten some comedy today. Now I'm telling you. There we go. Maybe I'll just do. There we go. I'll do that.
Okay. So can you tell us what's your approach to instructional feedback and teacher development?
So teacher feedback is important. I've done an episode about effective feedback. When you're giving feedback to teachers, you want to be specific, and you want to make sure that you give clear feedback about how the teacher performed, or how their lesson plans looked, if they were effective plans. You don't want to use terms such as this was a good plan. Good does not tell us what made the lesson plan good, what made the lesson itself good. So you want to be specific, but then if there are areas in which that teacher struggled in, you want to be able to give feedback in such a way, and it's called giving warm and cool feedback. Warm feedback is where you focus on the positives, and then that cool feedback is where you are telling that individual what areas needed to be worked on without going in hard on them, which is, another form of feedback. When you give that hard critical feedback, you can lose a teacher. They feel like nothing he or she did was correct. So I believe, and I teach about giving that warm and cool feedback, not cold, but cool feedback, as well as making sure that it's specific in how you provide support to that individual. Because just telling someone, "Oh, this was a horrible lesson," you've lost it. And there are people that that's the type of feedback they feel is effective, but usually those are leaders that are trying to get people out of the building. And I believe in coaching individuals. Anyone who is willing to be coached, and that individual is willing to listen to what what leadership has to say, let's coach them to greatness, instead of trying to get them out of the building. Some people will make their way out of the building on their own, just because of the type of spirit that they have, and the type of person that the individual is.
How do you create safe, inclusive learning environments?
Making sure that students know that their voices are welcome, and letting them know that they are in a safe space by not just saying it, but showing them. Students feel safe when they know that not just the students, but also adults are not going to be in attack mode. And one thing that I talk to educators about is how you talk to the students. The way you talk with them, that can determine whether or not that person feels like they're safe coming to you if there's an issue, or even safe coming to your classroom on a daily basis. And just having individuals that know how to talk to students is very, very critical. It's very important. Students, just like adults, sometimes we go to work with the world on our shoulders, on our backs, on top of our heads, but we have to put those things aside when it comes down to being able to come in that building and educate our children. Whatever we have going on, we have to leave it outside the door. Our students, because their minds are still developing, they don't always know how to do that. If they got into an argument with their parents at home, they come in and they may be grouchy, they may be angry, they may be weepy. And the one thing that we do sometimes, we can turn them completely off if we don't recognize what they're dealing with when they come in. And if we just say, "Oh, you'll get over it," you've lost it. And I've heard people say that. And there are times in which I've actually had to go behind an individual and say, "Come to my office, let's talk," and helping that student to feel better. So, I'm a big fan of making sure we know how to talk to each other, not just how we talk to each other as adults, but how we talk to our students. Because many times, individuals may think, "Oh, it doesn't matter what I say to," they're going, again, parent-child relationship at the school level. It's not necessary. The students need to buy into what you're saying and what you're teaching. And if they don't feel welcomed, if they don't feel as if you're hearing them, you have lost them, period. And you've created a situation. You are creating something that remains with that child for the rest of his or her life. And I've talked to some of my adult students, and they still remember people and things that they said to them and how it made them feel. I still remember things that were said to me when I was pregnant as a senior. And I still remember what the teacher said to me and how it made me feel, because at that time I didn't have the, I'll say, the mouth on me like I do now and speaking up, and I'm respectful of my elders. But I was in a shell in high school. I felt like I was in a shell. And so I remember things that were said to me that made me feel like I was the smallest person, because I allowed myself to get pregnant for a second time. And people really have to be careful about what they say to individuals. They really do.
So let me just ask you this. What is the relationship like with your Black students and the white teachers? What is that relationship like?
So at my school, I see that there are a lot of healthy relationships. There is one teacher who stands out. He's been teaching now for, I think he said it's almost 40 years, if it's not at 40, over 40. And he works with construction, and the children just love him. He grills out whenever they have finished doing their OSHA training, and he does incentives with them. He's just an awesome individual in working with our Black and brown students, because many of them are the ones that go into construction. So the relationships are pretty healthy in the building with our white staff members.
And so we had a chat when I asked you about Black history, and I asked you who was the most influential person in your life and career. You said there were three people. You said your mother, Phyllis Wheatley, and Dr. King. Mm-hmm. Can you tell us why are your mother, Phyllis Wheatley, and Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. the most influential figures in your life?
I can, and I actually I have a fourth person too. Okay. My mother gave me. She gave me the strength, the courage to do everything in life that I set my mind to, because I saw her raising three children, and I appreciated her more as I get older. I appreciate everything that she's done for me. At the time, didn't understand why I had to get the shoes from the Maxway store instead of Reebok. Or why my clothes came from the family that my grandmother worked for versus getting them from some of the other stores like Goodies and Cato's and so forth. I appreciate her for what she did and in raising three children. Phyllis Wheatley, as I said, she inspired me to be a writer, to write poetry, and just her story of adversity and how she stood up and said, these are my writings. No one wrote these for me. I learned how to read and write. These are my writings. So that inspired me to be a writer. Dr. Martin Luther King, everything that he did, and I know that there were those before him and there have been those after him, but he has helped me professionally to be able to work with not only Black and brown, but other populations of students, and being able to work in the same building with them, and just helping me to know that, again, sometimes you have to stand up for what you know is right, and whether it's a silent march or a silent struggle, but you're standing up and you standing on business, as young people say, say this is what needs to happen. These are the changes that need to come about. And then the fourth person professionally is Principal Kafele. He has written several books, and one of his books that I read as a principal was the Principal 50. That was it. The Principal 50, and just 50 things that as a leader that you say. And I've been following him for a while and listening to some of his speeches. I actually had a chance to hear him in person at a conference. Very powerful leader, and he is always coaching other leaders and supporting them in their journey. So all of these individuals have helped me grow professionally and personally in my own life, and have added, and so many others, but those are the top four that I would say that have helped me to grow.
So how do their teachings and legacies show up in your work today?
In my writings, my mom is coming through in my writings. My Phyllis Wheatley, again, I keep her in mind every time I am. There we go. Ooh, that's a whole lot better. I keep her in mind when I am writing my poetry and just thinking about what she went through. And then as far as Dr. Martin Luther King, when I'm writing, I remember the struggles, and I remember what Black and brown people have gone through and continue to go through as we are still carving our way in this life and in this world, and why our voices are sometimes trying to be suppressed when there is so much that we have to offer. Whether it's Black or brown, no matter who you are, we all have something to offer, but sometimes people will try to close the mouths of those who may be the most powerful. And I believe that. So these individuals, they show up in my writings, in what I do each and every day as I go to work, and just reminding me of their strength, their courage, their aspirations, their vision, being visionary leaders, how they helped me to get to where I am, and I keep them in the forefront of my mind every day as I continue my journey in carving out a space for me in this society.
So in closing, what are some words of wisdom and encouragement that you'd like to leave for our audience? Tell them how they could connect with you on social media, give them your website, how they can buy the books, all of those good things.
You can connect with me on Facebook. I have 2 different accounts, but I will start with my encouraging words that I would leave with you is be confident in who you are. Know your own worth. When you know your worth, no one can take that from you. When you know who you are and you know what you can do and you stand firmly on that and you speak that every day. Many times we shut ourselves down and we don't speak and say what we know to be truth. Use positive talk. Positive talk is important. Always use that. Even if you may not be feeling it, people say, well, why say it if I don't feel it? Because when you say it enough, you start to feel it. You start to believe it. So I encourage you to keep positive talk in the forefront at all times, because that will keep you going. Even when you don't want to go, keep positive talk in the forefront, reflect every day on what you've done. At the end of the day, always do self-reflection. You can find me on Facebook. My personal account is just my name, Lashawnte McCray-Sarvis. My business Facebook page is under Classy Sassy. That's me, Classy Sassy Consultant. You can follow me on there. I'm on Instagram. My personal account, same thing as my name, and then my business account, Classy Sassy Consultant. As far as my podcast, The Road to an Effective Classroom Environment, if you that I am on Buzzsprout, that is my platform, but I am out there on Apple, Spreaker, all types of other platforms. But you can type in, do a Google search for The Road to an Effective Classroom Environment, and you can listen to my podcast. My book, you can go to drlashawnte.org if you want to purchase the book, or you can just hit me up at my email, lashawnte6@gmail.com. My book, Embarking on a Journey Through the Eyes of a Poet, can be purchased on Amazon. I always merge those 2 together. You can find that on Amazon. That is available on Amazon.
Well, first and foremost, I want to thank you for blessing us with your presence, because this has truly been an enlightening but great show.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Yes, and I want to ask you, can we have you back on the show again?
Most definitely, and I will take the advice of my daughter. She says, I need a curtain. I have a curtain. It's just a small curtain. It's the cutesy curtain. I got a blind, but yes, I will be in a better space. And I'm not going to tell too much. Well, I already told a bunch of stuff anyway. So I had to turn my computer because I had an issue in my ceiling. So I had to turn it so you couldn't see it. So it wouldn't have been as bad if my computer was turned the other way. But anyway, life be life, and I'll get it fixed eventually before the next one.
Yes. And so I just want to, well, I'm glad to know that, and I'll definitely be reaching out to you, and I'll just, give you those dates in advance. I'll email you that. For those of you that have been watching this show, we just actually got to understand the legacy, the leadership, and liberation, the journey of Dr. McCray-Sarvis. In this journey, and what she has just taught each and every last one of us, is that, one, if you don't have confidence, if you don't know who you are and don't know how to find out who you are, that's where it all starts. So once you have found you and you're confident in the things that you do and believe in what you believe in, this is what you stand up for, and this is your principled part of life. This is how you establish yourself going forward, of not just being different from everybody else, but being top of the group. Because if you don't know you, then you can't get anywhere. But if you do know yourself, you do have purpose, and you do have a place that you're trying to get to. This is where it starts, and we want you all to get there. This is where we're talking about building our communities. This is where we're talking about giving back to our communities to feed the younger folk, to be those leaders that they are naturally supposed to be going forward. Now, if we're going to put that stock in you, you've got to put that stock in you as well, because we can't be happy for you and then live the dream for you. You've got to live that dream. And so I just think when you think about when Dr. McCray-Sarvis was talking about the leadership part of this interview, leadership is very important. For a lot of people, it's a natural thing, but you never know until something taps into that brain and you have to jump out and you got to do what you got to do. Now, she's a perfect example, because when she was talking about how things started for her to where she is right now, you can't tell me that she's not on the journey. You can't tell me that she's not accomplishing feats. You cannot tell me that she is not ready to elevate even higher than where she is now, because she has that solid foundation that she's created, that she's standing on. We have to build that platform. And if we build that platform can support each and every last one of us, as long as we're unified and doing what we have to do. Now, we just saw a perfect example of an individual that's actually doing her part, where she's still reaching back into the community. This is where we all need to reach out, grab that hand, and we all need to take part and do our part. Let's build our communities. I want to thank you all for watching the show tonight. And for those of you that have not subscribed and got all of the notifications to the channel yet, I suggest that you please do that. And I would appreciate if you would lend us your support in actually doing that. Because not just this show tonight that's giving you a lesson, but each and every show that's previously done, when you go back and you look at that show, there's a lesson for you. That's what we do here. That's what this platform is about. That's what this platform is about doing, as into highlighting our heroes that are here today with us right now. That's what we're doing right now. So please, let's all do what we got to do. Hey, let's get out there, and you just got Dr. Sarvis's contact information. Please reach out, because I'm sure that there's somebody or some people that's got questions in this area that you want to be a part of. Who better to ask than her? So I thank you all for watching the show tonight. Please come back tomorrow night, as we have another excellent show here on America in Black and White, where we will continue to color conversations on America's canvas. Thank you, Dr. McCray-Sarvis, and we will definitely be in touch, and I'm looking forward to having you back on the show.
Thank you.
And you have a great evening, and thank you again.